And right now we welcome on a four-time Super Bowl champion. He is one of the great stories in NFL history, being drafted in the 16th round. The 16th round out of Notre Dame. Serving in the military in Vietnam, returning to have a more than decade career with the Dynasty Steelers of the 1970s. One of the key members of all of those Super Bowl teams, Rocky Bleier. Rocky, how you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on your show.
My pleasure.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, too.
Happy New Year to you as well. It's always a pleasure when we get to catch up. And we were talking about the Steelers team earlier in the show and that maybe this group of guys might not come back intact next year. What do you think about this Steelers team's chances at crowning another Vince Lombardi trophy for the franchise?
Well, their chances, I'm going to tell you, their chances are as across the board are as good as anybody else's that is in the playoff system right at this moment in time. And playoffs are playoffs. And so anything can happen in a playoff game. People rise to the occasion. But the Steelers, and I look at this team, they have so many weapons offensively. That now that Le'Veon Bell's going to be back, AB's going to be back, how much they contribute to play, but they'll be back, and it'll be kind of like a whole team from an offensive perspective. And the biggest thing, the big question is defense. So they have risen to the occasion when needed. And played superb defense at times, and they've also at times, well, like other teams, just what they did in the bed. So it was like they did not do well. But they have the capability of being able to do it. They've improved this year. They've come together. They've won some big games. And they've lost some games that they should have won. And but it's playoffs. And during the playoff time, as we well know, people rise to the occasion. And it becomes a second part of the season or a different part of the season. And so I look for them to do. I look for them to beat the Jaguars. First of all, coming up this weekend. They lost to them in the season. That's an impetus for them to play better. They had a week rest, which is important when everybody else was banged up. So they're coming into this game. It's a home game. Steeler Nation will be out in droves to be able to support them. So it'll be an easy game to get up for. And with the with the other impetus of having lost earlier in the season, just to beat the Jags. So that will be, from my point of view, unless they make big mistakes, but they should win this game, and it'll be great. Then we'll see what happens thereafter. So they have the potential of doing it, and it's like in the playoffs, you just gotta do it. You gotta rise to the occasion. It's if it all works out, and as everybody anticipates, if the Steelers have to play the Patriots the following week up there in New England, it's like, okay, a home field advantage for the Pats, but we've won on the road in the past. So, you got to come, you got to play your game. You can't afford mistakes, especially in playoff games like this. You've got to play your A game, and they have the capability of doing that.
There's been a
little short answer to your question.
Rocky, I love it because every time we have you on the show, I can ask you one question, then go get a drink, go get a sandwich, and then it's great. So I wanted to ask you about the end of the Patriots dynasty because people are starting to say, well, maybe this will break apart because of egos and internal strife. And I think about the end of the Steelers dynasty for you guys, it really wasn't because of egos from what I saw. It was just simply a lot of guys getting old at the same time. You retired in 1980. Did you see the writing on the wall that the good times were no longer going to be so good simply because of age, or was there an ego thing or a power struggle as well?
No, there wasn't an ego thing or power. I'd like to be able to sit back here and reflect and say, oh yeah, I knew they were going to fall apart in the '80s, because of no one could live up to the standards that we had set in the '70s, But no, I mean, I had no preview of what was going to take place. But I'll tell you this. So you're right. In the Steelers' demise, and I say that, out of the '70s into the '80s, is that there was an older team. It was an older team. Chuck hung on to players maybe a little longer than he should have, and now all of a sudden there's a void. There's a void in no experience coming in and filling in when it needed to be rejuvenated. The second thing is that the success of a team also, in my opinion, is that offensively you need to have a quarterback or the quarterback to be able to have belief, be able to run a team, have success. And so then in the early part of the 80s, we got Bradshaw, he gets hurt, he's got some problems with Chuck, so there's a little falling apart, and he retires in '82. Franco Harris holds out in '83, and so he goes, and that doesn't work out for him, and then he retires. So that's what kind of happens at times. But I, from the Patriots' point of view, and is that either a lesson learned by Bill Belichick, but he is, I look at that franchise and what they've done over the last 17 years, basically, with Belichick and Brady, the constant, but being able to interject. He's probably had 3 different teams or maybe 4 different teams, personnel-wise. All of a sudden, somebody's gone and he's got a replacement. Where'd he come from? But all of a sudden it's like it works, and they don't miss a beat. And so he's been able to avoid those pits by hanging on to people too long.
Rocky Bleier joining us. He won 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the '70s. He joins us here on CBS Sports Radio. Looks like Brett Favre is the executive producer of a documentary about his career and about concussions, about how he, now looking back, realizes how many times he played with concussions. When you look back on your career, and you were also involved in combat as well, how much time do you spend thinking about concussion, CTE, and that type of brain trauma?
None. No time. In all honesty, I spent no time thinking about, that or how it may affect me in a long period of time. Now, so to some degree, and I really have to tell you this, and I never had a concussion. Okay, so I never was knocked out, never saw bells, got dinged, or any of that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that I might not have some effects later on just because of the contact over a period of time. And when we talk a period of time, we talk about junior high, high school, college, as well as the professional ranks, just that, the constant just falling down, getting hit, may have some effect later on. But I can't dwell on that, only because of the fact that I won't let myself dwell on that. If it happens, it happens. Now, part of it is, part of it is an assumed risk, I think, and I feel, on a player's aspect. To come and say, well, should the NFL known better about concussions and so on? Well, when you're my age and that whole generation, we played. Nobody knows. Did you get dinged? Yes. Okay. How many fingers do I have up? Well, 1 or 2. Okay, fine. What's your name? You give me your name. Okay. You're ready to go. Go back in. And we didn't know anything about the long-term effects. But that was part of what I signed up for. And part of the risk in playing a contact sport. And football is a contact sport. As much as we can learn from what has happened to generations and the extent of concussions is the repeated concussion without allowing the brain to heal, and so that builds up the CTE and in the brain matter that generates the effects that happen with dementia and so on. But so there's more knowledge out there. There's more understanding. So it's a trickle-down effect that people can make different choices as they come through their playing career, and whether they want to continue or not continue, or cut it short after several concussions. All the majority of the information, points to one direction or another. So it really, it's really up, to the player. But let's just assume this: it's a contact sport. There's some part of assumed risk on a player's part, and then now we're in a better position because of understanding of concussions and what needs to be done, and then ultimately the long-term effect if you don't do anything about it and keep putting yourself back into that situation where you get multiple concussions, can really have a devastating effect on your life later on.
Rocky Bleier won 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 1970s, also served in the military in Vietnam, and really one of the indelible images and members of those Steelers teams. Rocky, every time we catch up, man, it is an honor for me to do so. I love picking your brain. I love spending time with you. Will you be at the Super Bowl? Will I be able to catch up with you again this year?
Well, I'll be there. I'll be in Minneapolis.
Yeah. Okay. I will as well.
Minneapolis during the week. So.
All right. We'll try to run into one another again, man.
All right.
As always, I love our chats. Thank you so much, Rocky.
Thanks, EA. All right.
Rocky Bleier joining us.